Alright everyone, hail and welcome to this week's episode of Midgard Musings, and today is episode 5 in our deity discussion series. Today we'll be talking about the Watchman of the Gods, Heimdall. So thank you all so much for tuning in and watching this week. If you haven't watched any other videos in my on my channel yet and you don't know who I am, my name is Jesse and I'm the host here on this channel each and every week. I usually upload one video a week, and it's dedicated to Norse heathenry related topics, things that may pique my interest at any given point in time. And then we also have the series type videos. If this is your first time watching, and this is, like I said, episode 5 of the deity discussion series, you can go to the playlist section of this channel and check out all the previous episodes. We've hit some of the major gods of the Norse pantheon. We've hit Odin, we've hit Thor, we've hit Loki, Tyr. So here we are now with episode 5, and we are here discussing Heimdall. So before we get into the discussion, I'd like to get a couple things out of the way. If you have not yet become a subscriber to this channel, go ahead down into the bottom section of the video, that little rectangle that you see that says subscribe. If it's red, click on it and it'll become gray. And you're a subscriber. Click bell notifications for so that way you're always notified every time I upload new content on this channel. Share the videos around, comment down below, let me know what you think. Always eager for feedback, and as always, I appreciate your support. So before we get started in this series discussion, let me go ahead and light our candle, light our incense. This is kind of a tradition here on the channel, just something that I like to add for ambiance, and we will get started. Real quick too, I also want to give a couple shout outs. Behind me, you see the huge Vegvisir, the huge Vegvisir banner behind me here, that was gifted to me by a friend and a supporter of the channel. His name is Billy McKinney. I got to meet him in North Carolina earlier this, actually late last year, visiting family out there, and this was a gift from him. So thank you, Billy McKinney, for this amazing banner. Also want to give a shout out to the NorseBlood.com team. I'm going to be doing some really cool stuff with those guys here in the near future. You'll be seeing more content on this channel with stuff related to them. So shout out to NorseBlood.com and Jax Ryan out in Australia. Appreciate all the love and support that you guys have shown for Midgard Musings here on this channel and on this page. So now that all that is out of the way, guys, let's go ahead and get into this week's discussion about Heimdall. So the deity discussion series that I have here on this channel is not so much dedicated to talk about the history of the god or goddess or deity topic of discussion that we may have, but so much as is to touch a little bit on about the history, but more or less to kind of focus in on the specific workings of that deity with us as heathens, and how they work with us in our ritual practices and so on and so forth. So let's talk a little bit about Heimdall. The reason, or I guess not necessarily the reason, but the interesting thing about Heimdall is, for me anyway, he is probably one of the most important gods that we know the least about. And the reason for that is because how he is mentioned in the lore and how he is brought up in some of the Eddic poems and things like that is very obscure, very mysterious. We're going to be talking a bit about him now and his role in our practices as heathens. So Heimdall is probably most popularly known as the Watchman or Sentry of the gods. He stands guard at the on the Bifrost Bridge, the Rainbow Bridge that connects Midgard to Asgard, the realm of the gods, and he stands guard, ever vigilant, at that bridge to kind of protect and guard against any sort of ill that would come into the realm of the gods. He doesn't have a lot of great detail spoken of him in terms of his workings with mankind, outside of one of the Eddic poems in the Poetic Edda called Rigsthula, or the Lay of Rig, which is arguably Vrig being the god, another name for Heimdall. Okay, we're going to be talking a little bit about that here in just a minute. But like I said, Heimdall is the Watchman of the Gods. He stands ever vigilant. He's got exceptional eyesight, exceptional hearing, gifted to him to aid in his protection or guardianship, if you will, for the gods of Asgard, to kind of protect them from any attacks that come in. And he is also the god who, at Ragnarok, will sort of announce or declare or ring in that epic beginning. So when Ragnarok begins, when everything kicks off, he blows his horn, Yellowhorn, and basically at that point, Ragnarok has come, and that is the announcement, that is the warning, that is the alarm to the gods that Ragnarok is upon you. So I'm going to refer to the Poetic Edda now. I'm going to be referring to Jackson Crawford's translation of the Poetic Edda. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we have listed as points of interest to kind of reflect on, of what we know about Heimdall, at least in the Poetic Edda. Coming first from Völuspá, right? The prophecy of Ragnarok, the witch kind of gives the foreboding of what's going to happen with the gods in this poem. The very first stanza of Völuspá is, "Heed my words, all classes of men, you greater and lesser children of Heimdall." Now, before we go much further, I want to talk a little bit about this whole thing about children of Heimdall. Now, the children of Heimdall. Why does Heimdall? Why are the classes of men referred to as children of Heimdall? And the reason for that can kind of be attested in the actual poem Rígsthula, which is the Lay of Rig. And in that poem, it pretty much goes into a lot of detail. I'm not going to read the whole poem because it's quite lengthy, but it basically goes into this scenario where, or it's arguably Heimdall comes to Midgard in the form of Rig, or Riga, and sleeps with different classes of mankind to produce the three classes of men, or the three classes of humanity, if you will. He comes across first the class of the thralls, or the slaves, and sleeps with a man and a woman in their home, and the offspring that comes forth from him sleeping with this couple produces what are known as later on the thrall or the slave class, the lower class, the working class, kind of the bottom of the barrel, if you will. He travels on and he meets another family, and he sleeps with the man and the woman there, and their offspring 9 months later procures the middle class, kind of the specific, craftsmen, I guess, if you will, the ones who are not quite the lower bottom of the barrel, but not quite the higher upper class. They're sort of the middle class folk. And then later on, he goes on and in 9 months meets a third family, which are the higher upper class, or the nobility class, and sleeping with them produces or procures that race. So you therefore have the three different races of the thrall or the slave or the lower class, the middle class, and the upper class, right? The slave, the middle class, the nobility. So in that sense, we understand how or why the witch in Völuspá reaches the conclusion to refer to mankind as the children of Heimdall, right? One of the other interesting things, and when we mentioned earlier about how Heimdall to a lot of us was one of the most important yet lesser known of the gods, or one of the more mysterious gods of the Norse pantheon, is how in Völuspá and Skjama, which is basically a shortened version of Völuspá later in the Poetic Edda, in stanza 35 through about 37, stanza 35 through 37, it says, "There has been one in ancient times, a very powerful son of the family of the gods. He had 9 mothers. Those 9 giant women gave birth to the noble spearmen at the edge of the world." And then later on in the next two stanzas, it goes and it talks about who these giantess women were, who are the 9 mothers of Heimdall. And that always has kind of been perplexing for a lot of heathens in terms of how you can have 9 mothers. How can this god have